Hello, welcome to Soulblaizers, the podcast that ignites your inner fire and empowers you to blaze your own trail. I'm your host, Cara.
And I'm Amanda. Together we are here to share our stories, insights, and wisdom to inspire and guide aspiring trailblazers like you.
And like us. So whether you're learning to start your own business, seeking personal growth, or simply looking for that spark to set your soul ablaze, this is for you.
So I came here with two kids. Yours were both born here.
Yeah, Harry was born 2006, December 2006. Georgia was born 2009. So had both kids really early on in marriage. It wasn't our plan. And looking back, I probably would have liked to have waited a few more years. I'm sure you might have said the same thing.
No.
Okay.
No, it's so funny. I was thinking about this. So my oldest of the children I gave birth to, so I have two kids that I gave birth to and three bonus kids that are not biologically mine, but are absolutely still my children. Maxwell, my oldest, graduated high school this weekend, and really thinking about it, like it was my intention from the get-go to be a young mom, because when I was a really young midwife and not yet a mom, which in hindsight, how in the world was I even competent or like just basically available as a midwife, having not had a baby? But in some ways I was almost a better midwife before I had kids because I wasn't clouded by my own experience. All that being said, I wanted to be a young mom because I was taking care of people who in Wellesley, Massachusetts, had gone into like semi-retirement to have a baby. They were like in their early mid-40s. They had these very successful careers, but they had a lot of things that they were used to doing, and they had become in some ways quite rigid by the time they were trying to get pregnant, and they had all these expectations for how it should go. And it's a Buddhist thing to say it this way, but the distance between expectation and reality equals suffering. So you suffer when you expected something, and reality is different from what you expected. These women thought that they could approach having a baby just like everything else in their lives. They would make a plan and check off the list, and the baby would come, and the baby would nurse, and the baby would do all of these things. And that's not the reality of human reproduction. It's very unpredictable. I used to say, like, the first lesson in parenting is that the baby didn't get the memo. Like, the baby doesn't know what you think it's supposed to do. It's on its own plan when it gets here. And so I always intended to be a young mom. I was really lucky that worked out. And I feel really lucky now, having a kid that just graduated high school, to still have all this time to be his mom in a really different way and get to enjoy him as a young adult and still be young enough to go, on adventures with him. If anything, at the time, I would have told you that I wouldn't have waited as long. I think we were married like 3 years before he was born, and I might have done it even sooner.
Oh, interesting. All right.
How old were your kids when you started Hello Holidays?
Gosh. Okay. I started Hello Holidays, I guess, about 6 years ago. We're going in our 6th season in 2023. And Harry was he was middle school, just gotten into middle school. And no. Harry, both of them were in elementary. And I started it, and I was working full time as a teacher. I'd stayed home for 7 years and taught part-time at my alma mater college, and I was teaching Masters of Education and Masters of Reading, and I taught some other classes too, but those were the main ones. And I decided to go back into education. I was teaching Georgia, and she was in my class, and I started Hello Holidays and knew really early on I couldn't do both. And that's kind of like I think you learn that in entrepreneurship. That's really hard. If you want to start a business, it's really hard to do a full-time job working for someone else and going all in in your business. That's hard. So, and then I was also being a mom, and Chad's job there's no flexibility in his career, and that's okay. It works for us because it just works for us now. but it was in my house. Hello Holidays. My sister, Emily and Gemma, is younger than me, but was one of the first bloggers on the scene when blogging started. She was really young. Her fiance at the time was in med school in Virginia, and she moved away from us. And that was a really big deal. None of us had really gone farther than 2 hours from our family. That just was not a thing. And so Emily had graduated college, and she had an MBA in marketing and moved to Virginia. And so that was when blogging started and Instagram started. And Emily is like really good at beauty and design and fashion, and she knows what looks good for every body type. That's like one of her superpowers. She's got a lot. That's one of them. We laugh about her telling me she wanted to go to beauty school, and I didn't know. I was the big sister going, you can't go to beauty school. You have to go to college. And like looking back, she could have totally gone to beauty school and done exactly what she's doing now and never gone to college. But you only know what you know, and my degree was in education. So
Yeah, totally.
how can I not think education is the only way for everybody? Anyway, I laugh, and she laughs too. I gave her a lot of bad advice. She will be happy to tell you about that. But so Emily did the blog thing and the Instagram thing and took off. People loved her. They trusted her. If she tells you to buy stuff, you buy it, and you're glad you did. Emily's just got that in, and so no one was doing that. And let me tell you, it wasn't like we all embraced her doing that. With yes, you should post all these pictures of yourself, and you should post what you're buying. Like, we were not encouraging that. And looking back, I really regret it because Emily was a trailblazer. My little sister, in general, if we really want to get gritty, she's probably one of the biggest trailblazers in my life of doing something for you that you know is right for your purpose and not caring what everyone else is saying. Because golly, if she would have listened to all the people around her, she wouldn't be doing what she's doing, and she's killing it in life, doing incredible things. So I say that my sister was one of those. So she got, was doing she has a lot of followers and people trust her opinion. And so this was, oh gosh, it was probably 10 years ago, and she wanted me to help her with her Christmas tree. I wasn't even decorating my own Christmas tree at the time. My neighbor was, which is funny. And I went, and there was a store in town that I bought ribbon from. The Christmas ribbon is the only place I knew that you could buy this great ribbon. But I also knew this great ribbon is what makes your tree great. And we also bought a little bit from Hobby Lobby. And looking back, that did not look good. But we did. I went to her house. I left that morning. I think she was having a bad day, and she's like, "I got to get this Christmas tree up because in that world, you need to have your Christmas tree up in October or 1st of November." And it was like later. I go. We throw a tree together, and it was very whimsical. My mom has always encouraged like a whimsical, different. My mom has not played by the rules of any tradition and has done things differently. And that tree went viral on Pinterest. And Emily's like, "Amanda, I can't link this ribbon anywhere. There's nowhere else that sells it. You should sell it. You should make an e-commerce store and sell it." And of course, I laughed. She told me that for about 2 years and I did her tree again. Super popular. We had so much fun decorating her trees. And then I remember it was like 2000, I want to say 2016, 2017. They had just opened, Chewy's in Rogers. And Chad and I are sitting there. I remember at like 11:30 on a Sunday. I had never mentioned to him that Emily that has been wanting me to start my own e-commerce business. I had never said that because at the time, remember I was teaching, and I had this mindset that sales was below me. That is something I'm embarrassed to say out loud and being vulnerable, but I thought I wouldn't sell people stuff. Like, people who sell are car salesmen. Like, that was my furniture salesman. That was my ignorance of thinking of sales as a negative thing. You fast forward to me now, I'm like, everything, you say everything's business, I'm like, everything sells. Education was sales. As a teacher, I was the biggest salesman on the planet. I was selling people a mindset of learning. So looking back, I'm real embarrassed to say that, but I feel like if I don't say that, I'm not So anyway, Emily, I said it to Chad. I'll never forget it. And he looks at me, and he's a 5 on the Enneagram. He's not. I mean, he's calculated risk, right? Looks at all sides, and without any hesitation, he said, "You should totally do that." And it was like this idea. I haven't like my husband Chad is like this a huge source of like support for me, and him believing in me was like, oh, okay. So I tell my friend Scene, who is the attorney, who's like, I'll help you. I'd invest. Yes, you should do that. And we did it. We started it. And it was so scary. As mentioned earlier, I'd gone to market in January. This is in November. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. I remember figuring out the name Hello Holidays with my mom and sister going back and forth. Like, got to have this business. I don't want it to be all Christmas, but I think it needs to be Christmas. And, we're Googling, does anyone use these? And we're like, should we use holidays? Should we use Christmas? Should we use ribbon? And then Hello Holidays somehow came into the mix of me texting with my mom and sister. And we were all like, yes. And my sister has this saying that she says, I know it's a common saying, but keep it simple, stupid. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. And for overthinkers, because 7s are in the think. We overthink things, but if you'll just, it's kind of like, what's your quote she uses about perfection?
Oh, yeah. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Mark Zuckerberg quote. But for anybody in the head triad, I feel like that's a real, like, key mantra to remember. Is like, because I can get real fixated on minor details that aren't going to matter. And so in some ways, this podcast is a huge exercise in that. Of just put it out there, whatever sticks for somebody. If one person gets something out of it, it's worth doing. Like, I think that's a huge personal transition for me, and I know for you too, to like let go of it. Has to all be perfect before we launch it or put it out there or whatever.
Totally. Well, we got to talk about imposter syndrome, because imposter syndrome, is that what it's called? Imposter syndrome. It is like, but before I even knew that was a term, it's like, I didn't even know how to make a bow. Like, let's be honest. I started Hello Holidays, went and bought, like, I want to say maybe it was like $50,000 to $100,000 in products. And I didn't even know how to make a bow with ribbon. Like, really. I figured it out. My friend Kim, I went to her house and put all these bows on her house when I first started. And I know she still has them, and I think she still uses them. Heinous. I'm going to have her send me a picture of those, and I'll show, like, my first bows. So, like, I started this ribbon company, and I really didn't know how to use the product. You talk about jumping in. I didn't have any business knowledge. I did not have any business background. Never even paid attention to when anybody in business talked, because it had nothing to do with me. I didn't know how to use ribbon. I only knew how to cut it in strips and place it in a tree really well and put the colors together really well. And so it's almost like if I can do it, anybody could do it. And so started it. I'll never forget, Chad and I, Chad put the website together on Shopify. That's a great resource. If you want to start a business, totally. Shopify makes it so easy. It's cheap, and it does all the hard stuff for you. They'll even make your website for you. Started the website. Emily posted about us, and I will never forget us, like, getting those dings on our phone. Now I take the dings off because they give me anxiety, like, if I'm not getting enough dings or whatever. But, oh my gosh, it was like, people like what we have, and we'll never, Heather. That was my first order. I need to get that name correct, because I have a screenshot of our first order and me, like, feeling like so much love for that woman. And I didn't even know her, but, like, she just bought something I picked out. It made me, I can't even tell you that feeling that she trusted what I just bought. That was probably the first, like, dopamine hit drug of, like, this is what it feels like to start something, and it's a business, and it's a magical feeling, and I think every entrepreneur has felt that. Have you felt that? What was yours?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean,
all your business. You got like 5 that you could talk about.
Yeah, but the first one was, a freestanding birth center, and it was the same sort of thing around the business side of it, because I was a midwife and a researcher, and I'd written a national cohort study about birth center outcomes. But when it came time to like build out a facility, and like this is like actual life and death, like people are going to give birth in this place, right? And when we started having those first few patients who were like, thank God you're here. You know, really the origin story for the birth center is I'd written something called the National Birth Center Study 2. It was an update of a study that had been done many years before with colleagues. And then I just kept talking to women here at home and every place else who's like, well, that's great. The outcomes are so good in birth centers, but there aren't any. Like, show me a birth center. And like outside of major metropolitan areas on the coast, there really weren't. And so a girlfriend and I, my first business partner, named Shannon Bedore, were like, and she had had her own kind of complicated birth stories. We're like, this sucks. It can be better. We can do this. And ironically, my husband now owns the like sort of complex where the birth center was. It's called Villages on the Creeks. It's like right next to a big pond. In hindsight, it was like a really beautiful place to have a birth center because people could walk around the pond when they were in labor. But I didn't know anything about running a business. You know, I remember going to meet with the attorney the first time to get our operating agreement and our LLC and bylaws and whatever, because of course. And I think this is the thing for a lot of women who start things. I was really conflicted about it being for-profit versus not-for-profit, because I have a deeply held belief that healthcare is a human right and that it shouldn't be about money, but it is. Healthcare is a for-profit business in the U.S. So we had a not-for-profit arm that sort of allowed for community support of people's care, and then we had a for-profit sort of operating unit. That was silly. That was not necessary. There were a million ways to do it that didn't require creating two entities. It was overly complex. But anyway, that's some of the stuff that I now know that I would teach my students is like, let's go way back to like, what are you trying to accomplish here, you know? And I'll talk a lot about it, but human-centered design as opposed to human design, which is about individual people. Human-centered design is saying, who am I really making this for? Like, you were making Hello Holidays for people who wanted trees like Emily's, right? It's a very clear design project. You were starting from a place of, you know, lady in St. Louis wants a tree that looks just like this, doesn't know where to buy the stuff, doesn't know how to put it together, right? That's a really straightforward use case. I was starting from people don't want to have babies in the hospital because the outcomes are not good and they don't feel safe. So, you know, there's a real argument in maternity care about safety and like, it's not safe. You have to have your baby in a hospital because it's not safe. Well, safety is such a relative thing. And there are a whole lot of people who, for lots of good reasons, do not feel safe in hospitals. So it was really saying, like, how do I offer this service that I know from a scientific perspective is really good for people in my home community? And it was like trial by fire at every turn. And yeah, those first few people who were like, thank God